Assalamu alaikum dear students, welcome to your channel The Anatomy Canvas. In today's class of the Neuroanatomy, we are going to discuss with the descending tracts, and the learning objective for the today's class are to enumerate the descending tracts, describe the origin, the course and termination, and also the collaterals of the pyramidal system. So descending tracts are basically deliver the efferent impulses from the brain to the spinal cord, and they are divided into the two groups. The one is direct pathway and other is indirect pathway. Direct pathway, also called the pyramidal system, and indirect, essentially all other pathways are the extrapyramidal system, are called the indirect pathways. So first of all, the motor neurons involved in this system are basically two motor neurons, the upper motor neurons and the lower motor neurons. So upper motor neuron having their body in the cerebral cortex or the brainstem, and its axons terminate on the lower motor neuron in the anterior horn of spinal cord. Lower motor neurons, their cell body is located in the anterior horn of the spinal cord. The axon leads to the muscles. The anterior horn, these are also called the anterior motor neurons, and basically there are the two neurons which are involved in the descending motor system. So now we discuss the corticospinal tract, that is also called the pyramidal system, in detail. This is one of the longest tract, extend from the motor cortex to the last segment of the spinal cord, mainly having 1 million nerve fibers in it. Out of these nerve fibers, 70% are myelinated, of which only less than 2% have large diameter and arises from the giant bed cells. These are fast fibers, remaining are of smaller diameter and they are slow fibers, and 30% fibers are unmyelinated. So this is one of the longest tract, and it controls the voluntary movements of the body, the precision in the movements of the body, the highly fractionated precision movements of the limbs are these neurons are concerned with these movements. Now the origin of the fiber, basically the primary motor cortex, that is area number 4, the 30% are fibers coming from this area, the primary motor cortex. Then is the premotor cortex, area number 6, and area number 8, 30% fibers are coming from this area. Remember, this one is the central sulcus and this one is the frontal lobe, and behind this central sulcus is the parietal lobe. So behind this central sulcus, this area is area number 3, 2 and 1, and it is also called the primary somatosensory cortex. The 40% of fibers are coming from this area and from the area number 5. So these are basically the fibers which are originating from the different part of the cerebral cortex, the fibers which giving rise to the corticospinal system. So the direct or the pyramidal system, these are the direct pathways originating from the pyramidal neuron in the precentral gyrus. These are the primary motor neurons. So in this diagram you can see this is the precentral gyrus from where the primary motor neurons are originating. Pyramidal neuron is the upper motor neuron. It forms the corticospinal tract. Upper motor neuron synapses in the anterior horn of the spinal cord. So you can see this the fibers arising from here, forming the coronal radiata, passing through the internal capsule, then through the brainstem, and crossing in the lower part of the medulla oblongata, and then descending as the lateral corticospinal tract either, or the anterior corticospinal tract, which is uncrossed and which crosses at the level of the spinal cord in anterior commissure. And both of these tracts are basically contralateral. Their lower motor neurons are located in anterior horn. So you can see this blue color fibers show the lower motor neurons, and these rust color fibers shows the upper motor neurons of the corticospinal system. Then lower motor neurons, also called the anterior motor horn cells, activates this skeletal system. So you can see the cell body is located in anterior horn, and their axon moving through the anterior root of the spinal cord and combine with the posterior root to form the spinal nerves, and it supplies the muscles. So basically this system consists of the two tracts. The one is the lateral corticospinal and other is the anterior corticospinal. So in this diagram you can see 90% of the fibers are crossing in medulla oblongata to opposite side and forming the lateral corticospinal system. Remaining fibers remains on that side and descend as such till the level of the spinal cord as anterior corticospinal tract. These fibers then crosses two opposite side in anterior commissure and then relay on the second order neuron, which is lower motor neuron, in the anterior horn of the spinal cord. So basically the pathway starts from the corticospinal and corticobulbar fibers. Here you can see these are the different fibers, the areas of the cortex representing the leg, the trunk and the arm. These fibers are coming down, forming the corona radiata, then passing through the internal capsule, passing through the posterior limb basically and the genome of the internal capsule. Then the fibers enter into ventral part of the midbrain in the crus cerebri, then entering into the pons, and from the some of the fibers which are corticobulbar fibers relay over motor nuclei over here, and remaining fibers, the corticospinal, then descends downwards till at the level of the medulla oblongata. This is upper part of the medulla oblongata. Here they are running in the ventral surface of the medulla in the pyramids. Next you can see that the just rostral to the spinomedullary junction over here, just rostral to spinomedullary junction, 75 to 90% fibers are crossing to the opposite side. Then they are descending as the lateral corticospinal tract in the lateral funiculus of the spinal cord, and then these fibers enters into the area number fibers coming from area 4 and 6 terminate on interneurons in the lamina 5 to 7, and from here these are basically the interneurons, the alpha and gamma motor neurons which are present in lamina 9 in the anterior horn. These are activated by these interneurons, and then the second order neurons arises from these cells and these go to the effector organs. So this is a section at the level of the C8 to the motor endings in muscles of arm, forearm and hand. This one is the section at the level of the T4 to the motor ending in intercostal and segmental back muscles, and the section at the level of L4 to motor ending in the gluteus medius and the tibialis anterior, and these are the fibers going downward to the sacral segments. Here also you can see these are uncrossed fibers which are descending as anterior corticospinal tract, and at the level of the spinal cord they are crossing to the opposite side in anterior commissure, and then they again synapses in anterior motor neurons. So these are remaining 10 to 25% fibers which do not cross and descend ipsilaterally till the level of the spinal cord as anterior corticospinal tract. These are running in anterior funiculus of the spinal cord, crossing in the anterior gray commissure, anterior white commissure to the anterior horn of the spinal cord, and basically terminate in the interneurons on lamina 4 to lamina 7 of the Rexed lamination. So this is again an overview. The upper motor neurons taking origin in the cerebral cortex, passing to the internal capsule, basically passing to the posterior limb and genome of the internal capsule, and then passing through the midbrain, the crus cerebri of the midbrain, then anterior part of the pons and anterior part of the medulla in the pyramids, and at the junction of the medullary spinal junction they just crosses to opposite side and descends as the lateral corticospinal tract, and the one which is not crossing to the opposite side descend as anterior corticospinal tract, which then cross in the anterior commissure to the opposite side. The fibers relay in anterior horn cells whose axons goes to the through the spinal nerve to the effector organs. So this is basically the direct or the pyramidal system. Here again in this diagram you can see the corona radiator, then the internal capsule. This one is the internal capsule, and the corticospinal fibers which are present in posterior limb and genu of the internal capsule, then passing through the crus cerebri of the midbrain, then anterior part of the pons, then the upper part of the medulla in the pyramids, then lower part of medulla crossing to the opposite side, forming the pyramidal decussation, and then descending as the lateral corticospinal tract. Few of them, only nearly 10%, do not cross and descend as anterior corticospinal tract, which crosses at the level of the spinal cord to opposite side. So these sections, again another important thing you can notice in this diagram, that this light color area showing the fibers going to the cervical area, then the thoracic area, and then the lumbar area. So somatotopy is maintained throughout the tract. This is very important. The fibers which are going to the cervical region are most medial one, then the fibers are thoracic, and then the lumbosacral fiber are present. So somatotopy is maintained throughout the region. Again, another beautiful diagram, another important concept, fiber which are crossing, forming lateral corticospinal tract. These are usually 90%. The fiber which do not cross to the opposite side, 8% of these descend as anterior corticospinal tract in anterior funiculus of spinal cord, while again 2% are uncrossed fibers in the lateral corticospinal tract and descend with the crossed fiber in the lateral funiculus of the spinal cord. Again, these two tracts which are uncrossed, the anterior and 2% lateral, they crosses in the anterior commissure to the opposite side. Again, another diagram to show you the different areas. This is the motor cortex, its section, the area showing the foot, the lower limb, the upper limb, trunk, and the upper limb, the hand, the thumb, the area of the face, and area showing the swallowing. So this is basically motor cortex, from which the different fibers are arising, and this is the corticospinal tract, most of it crossed, few of it uncrossed. Again, another diagram just for your to memorize, to help you to memorize this. So this is the cerebral cortex, and the area number 4, 6, 3, 1, and 2 fibers coming from here, forming the corona radiata, passing through the internal capsule, then through the brainstem in the pyramid, crossing to the opposite side, are uncrossed. So crossed one is lateral and uncrossed is the anterior. So this one is the cortical motor homunculus, showing different area of the body representing in the cortex, and this is area which is representing the toes, then the foot, knee, hip, trunk, shoulder, elbow, wrist, hand. So you can see a large area of the cerebral cortex is representing the hand, the fingers, and the thumb. Then another a large area showing the area of the face, that is neck, eyebrow, eye, and then the face, lips, upper and lower lips, then the jaw, large area representing the tongue, and then the large area representing the swallowing. So this is the primary motor cortex and the precentral gyrus, which is showing the cortical motor homunculus. And this is all for your today's class. Thank you very much for your attention. The reference for the today's class is Gray's Anatomy by the Susan Standing 40th edition. Thank you very much for your attention. Allah Hafiz till the next class.